Okay, we're gonna need a couple minutes before we get started. And let's see.
And it's Jose's first time hosting tonight. Let's give him like a round of silent applause.
All right, let's see. We got a good number. 32 people in here so far. How is everyone tonight? Quarantining.
Super good.
Nice. Oh, well, thank you all for coming. And everyone, welcome to the Brooklyn Product Design Meetup. My name is Jose, and along with my fellow co-organizers, we're happy to experiment with a new format tonight, Lightning Talks. So basically, it consists of 5-minute talks, followed by roughly, a little bit of Q&A, give and take. And after that, it'll be followed by a Zoom hangout. But before we begin, if it's your first time here, welcome. If you've been to any of our previous events, welcome back. And on that note, let's talk about Brooklyn product design. So we started in 2017 with the premise of bringing Brooklyn's product design community together through curiosity and shared learning via speaker talks and social events in a safe space. But fun fact, we actually hosted our first design hackathon back in February of this year at Pratt. So as of today, we've got over 2,500 members. Woohoo! So here's a couple of the images, from our previous events. And, when things return to a degree of normalcy, we can hopefully host in-person events again. And as you see, we've had networking events, even, getting together and trying to build the world's tallest Jenga tower, as you can see. Yeah, we've also hosted events at our lab and as well. We just like to bring the Brooklyn design community together, but also the global design community now, given that we are now on Zoom. So a little bit about me. Before becoming a designer, I was in real estate, but I decided to go all in and transition into UX design in 2017. So I've been fortunate to do it as a freelancer ever since. And I love to think about solving problems, good design, creating memorable experiences with people, food, music, sports, and comic books. Fortunately, I came back after Thanos snapped me out of existence during the Infinity Gauntlet War, or whatever it's called. But I've been fortunate to, collaborate with a really wonderful group of people, and I got sucked into the Brooklyn product design community. So now comes the fun part. There were individuals who were gracious to share their time with us tonight. So first up, I'd like to introduce Diana, who's going to be talking about learnings from a hostage negotiator. Diana, are you there?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? All right.
Give everyone a round of applause to Diana.
Thank you. All right, so I think you need to stop sharing your screen first for me to share mine. But I'm excited to talk to you all today. I'll try and go fast. I know these talks are supposed to be short, so sorry if I'm speeding through the slides.
Can't hear you, Diana.
Can you still hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh.
Okay, now I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I was saying, I think you need to, Jose, if you need to stop sharing your screen first before I can share mine, just because.
Sure, go for it.
All right, great, thank you. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
See a slide? All right, awesome. So I'm going to talk about how an FBI hostage negotiator helped us communicate better with our users. And let me introduce myself. I'm Diana. I'm a product design lead at Cedar, where we build products that are at the intersection of healthcare and finance. So talking hospital bills. And you can imagine these are two of people's favorite topics combined together. And so one of the big design challenges that we always face is talking to people about money when they're already stressed out from needing care. So last year we did a research project with IDEO where, among other things, we did this type of research called analogous research, where you get inspiration from different industries and experts in different fields. So one of my favorite examples of this is the Sprinkles cupcake ATM, where it lets you withdraw cupcakes 24/7 at any point. But in our case, we talked to actually two experts. One is Chip, who's an FBI special agent and hostage negotiator for 20 years, and one of his consulting partners, Adele, who is a crisis communications expert who helps companies navigate crisis situations and how to talk about them. So together they combine his FBI stealth with her communication savvy, they call it, to create a service for their clients. And at Cedar, first we were a little nervous because we don't want to make our users feel like hostages for not paying their healthcare bills. But as we learned more, it turns out that good negotiation is basically not so different from good design. It's all about showing empathy, understanding people's problems, and helping to solve them. So I did my best to sum up their advice for this talk, and I'm going to jump right into their main tips. So the first one is master the art of empathy. Basically, Chip says the building blocks of everything he does are empathy and active listening. And as designers, we love to talk about empathy and how it's our superpower. So it's really interesting that FBI hostage negotiators do that as well. And if you're working with someone who doesn't believe how powerful empathy can be, Chip says to tell them, I've used active listening and empathy when someone's had a gun to another person's head and had them put that gun down and walk out with their hands up. Can they do that? But why does the FBI think of empathy as its main weapon? And it's not because they're trying to be warm and fuzzy. It's because it turns out empathy is the quickest way to bring somebody who's at a really heightened emotional state down to a much calmer one. So as Chip says, it's deadly efficient. And when he's only got seconds on the phone to make a connection with someone, it's really important. So the next one is name that emotion. So part of official FBI hostage negotiation training is to never let an emotion go by without labeling it. This helps the person feel understood and creates a connection between the two of you. Interestingly, I found some kind of related research around how just verbalizing feelings can decrease your the activity in your brain's amygdala, which kind of calming those emotions down. So words are really powerful, and just kind of acknowledging what people's emotional states are. Right. The third tip is about disengaging the lizard brain. So this is about, there are more primitive parts of people's brains that are related to survival. And so they're really good at telling us whether to go into fight or flight, but they're not so great at rational thinking and calm analysis. So when you're trying to talk to someone about something like healthcare billing and, get them to think rationally about what the best steps are, it's not so great maybe to do it when they're in a super heightened state. So you either need to buy time to kind of calm them down first using empathy, like we talked about before, or maybe you even try a different time. And so this is something that we think a lot about in our notification cadences and when we message patients, what kind of emotional state are they in at that point in their journey. The fourth tip is about finding the unsaid narrative. So according to Adele, everyone's got kind of a track running in their head about how they see themselves, and tapping into this narrative will let you use the same labels and language as the person you're trying to connect to. So Chip gave this example of he was negotiating with a former drug cartel member who was in maximum security prison for 8 murders. He kept offering him, like better food, a better cell, and the man wouldn't help him. But eventually Chip realized that it wasn't about doing something for this guy. It was just about showing respect and giving him his due as an expert who had been the top of his game. So I saw him, I validated the fact that he was a business person, and that's what he needed to hear. And then the prisoner agreed to help him. All right, and then the last one is about making bad behavior okay. We've heard a lot in our other user research that people generally want to pay their bills. They think it's the responsible thing to do. So if they're late or not making payments, it's kind of a normal thing, and kind of acknowledging that that it happens sometimes can help people feel less on the defense, and kind of help everyone move on to how to solve the problem. So Adele gave them an example of working with an executive who he had lied to his team about like a bad situation they were facing. And she pulled him aside and said, look, everybody lies, but let's not focus on that. Let's focus on solving the problem. So together they were able to jointly acknowledge the lie to his team, and then they made it everyone's problem to solve together instead of a finger pointing exercise. And last but not least, I wanted to show just some like really quick samples of how we put this into practice at Cedar and how it's been inspiring our design decisions. So it's a few screenshots. So, naming that emotion, like sometimes it's words, sometimes maybe it's just icons showing like, oh, if you get a really big bill or you're late, like maybe you're not feeling so great about it. The second one is about making bad behavior okay. So, if someone's late on their bill payment, we're kind of assuming that there's, want to say like, you can still do something about it and make it an offer to help rather than about blaming them. Empathy, I would argue that like empathy powers like all of this, right? But I chose an example that's about self-pay patients who might need extra financial assistance. And so sort of acknowledging that they're in like a tough situation and we're there for them. Avoiding the lizard brain. So this is about, we're working on a feature around giving financial estimates of how much your visit will cost, even before you show up to the office, so that this is before people receive a bill and they're like really upset about it. This is much earlier on, so they can do their calm and they can do financial planning around it. And the last is unsaid narrative. We did a lot of other user research trying to hear the value of our features in patients' own words. So in this case, they're pointing out how much time they save by like doing certain things online themselves, because according to the patients, that was the biggest value that they got from this feature, is the amount of time that they would save. So thanks for listening, everyone. It's my talk.
Diana, thank you so much. Appreciate you giving the talk tonight, especially trying to deactivate the lizard brain, and giving people, a heads up about, the cost estimate of what it is they're going to be going in for. Mm-hmm. Pretty cool. Anyone have any questions for Diana? Going once, going twice. If Diana, is available, we can all talk, later on. We're going to do a Zoom hang, after, the talks are, concluded. But yeah, again, Diana, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Oh, let's see. Someone had a question on the product name. So Cedar is the name of the company, and we have a series of products. So our main product is Cedar Pay, which is a patient billing platform. But I work on the initiatives team at Cedar. So we're working on new tools that are more end-to-end for the patient's journey. So things like the financial estimates and self-service check-in tools that come before a visit.
All right, does anyone else have another question, or are we good to go? Okay, I believe we're good to go. Thanks again, Diana. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, next up, is Abeiene here?
Hey.
Hey, Abeiene, thanks so
How are
much.
you?
So everyone, now we're gonna, hand it over to Abeiene, who's going to be talking about creating a thriving business during uncertain times. Take it away.
Cool. Can you all see my screen? I can't see
Yep.
anything. I'm assuming yes. Just let me know if you can't. Okay, so hey, I'm Abeiene, a UX consultant specializing in user research, workshop facilitation, and service design. So I've helped small startups all the way to Fortune 500 companies, essentially with their user research initiatives. With that, I wanted to say that, you know, during these really crazy times that we're in, a lot of people or a lot of my clients can feel a little panicked on what to do with their business or how to create features for their customers because, you know, people are losing subscriptions, that kind of stuff. The one thing I want to say is businesses don't fail because of pandemics, natural disasters, or any other factors that we think are out of our control. The number one reason 80% of startups fail is actually because there's no market need. Customers don't really think they need your product during this time. And then of course, there's not enough capital, not the right team, competition, and pricing. But for the sake of this talk, we'll focus on the no market need. One thing I wanted to note is remember that your customers are essentially your North Star. Similar to what Diane was saying, you could really improve your product so that it resonates to your customers when you truly understand what they need from your product and or service. So how do you sort of find your customers if you're not a researcher? Some interesting ways to engage your customers if you have an existing client list or customer list is go through your Instagram stories, engage them that way, and ask them how they're currently feeling, talk to them like human beings, really empathize with them at that point, and then ask them if they're interested in talking about your product. And you can use that as a recruitment and or you can use it as a short survey with the caveat of don't just use your surveys as the North Star, complement it with actually talking to your customers. Also, you can reach out by using your current email list. The other caveat to that is when you do reach out to your email list, sometimes you only get like the highly engaged users reaching out to you, wanting to talk to you about your product. And that's great, but really the golden nuggets and really how you can improve your product is really understanding what are the pain points people have around your product. So engage them to a certain degree, but you want to get a good mix of people who are highly engaged, not engaged, have currently signed up and then stop using your product. And then if you want to get net new customers, one of my favorite tools is using respondent.io. They offer a free screener to their pool, so you can really hone in and target on your demographics. So pro tip, like you can just do like a 10-minute conversation to just, you know, really get into the heads of your customers. But go into the conversation with one goal in mind because it can become really easy for you to fall into a rabbit hole of having random conversations and then you feeling like you came up with nothing and or maybe a million different ideas that don't really correlate to the original reason why you wanted to talk to them. So again, if you're just doing a 10-minute conversation, just have one goal in mind. So if we were to take an example, let's say, you know, restaurants right now are really struggling to stay afloat. So let's imagine that one goal would be, you know, you want to understand how could you sort of create a great experience for your customers right now, even though they're at home and they can't actually go into your restaurant. Really listen to interesting tidbits from your customers. Listen to those intonations when they're talking about painful experiences or even joyful experiences and really hone in on that, and that becomes sort of your insight. So this is sort of like a made up scenario where this person talked about, you know, they love people watching, they are a young family, so it's hard for them to get out. The food was okay, but it was really about that space. So if you took all those pieces together, you can maybe interpret it as how could we create this immersive space for our customers? And you can start coming up with ideas like if maybe you have a lot of capital and you want to think long-term, maybe it's a virtual reality experience that you want to create for them, or maybe it's a Peloton-like experience for them sort of, you know, that experience already exists right now. It was blowing up prior to Corona. They have a lot more subscriptions now. Or if you're looking for something a little bit more short term, you could also just maybe do a video with a chef or sommelier. So it feels like you're still out, but even though you're eating at home. So the framework that I like to use when it comes to talking to customers is really like understanding, what did you observe or hear? How are you interpreting that? Like, what is your judgment based on that observation? And then what values or motivations drove that customer to say those things? And like similar to when we were talking about that VR or Peloton-like experience, what ideas or how do you plan to solve for that problem or that insight? So that's a really quick framework that I like to use when it comes to talking to your customers. I have a more in-depth guide on how to do this. If you're interested, there is like this free training that you could do. It talks more about how to actually reach out to your customers, how to use that sort of template when it comes to talking to your customers. And that's pretty much it. Questions? Oh yeah, feel free to reach out to me if you want to talk more about this stuff. I totally like nerding out on it.
All right, Abeiene, thank you so much. Anyone have any questions for Abeiene?
I have a question around the tool you mentioned, respondent.io. I'm curious, I haven't heard of it before. I've used like similar tools in the past though, so I'm curious what you like about that one specifically.
They have a good pool. Am I still on? You can hear me, right? They have a good pool of both B2C and B2B customers. So I work with a lot of B2B clients. So when it comes to reaching out to marketers or developers or salespeople, it's really good. But when I've worked on like health apps, it's also been really good to reach out to B2C. Again, it's not necessarily that I love it. I think user interviews could be good too. Like Respondent recently changed their pricing model, so I'm not the biggest fan of that aspect, but when it comes to their pool of participants, they've had really good ones. And the best thing about it, because I am a consultant and I need to have quick turnaround rates on the interviews that I do, I can book someone within like a day.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, I'll pop that link in the chat. I'll do that right now. Any other questions?
All right. Well, Abeiene, thank you so much for taking time out, to come and present to us tonight. Appreciate that.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
All right. Next up, we're going to go into humor that works, and that's going to be presented by Vandad.
Hey, everyone. Can you hear me? Just give me like a thumbs up. Yeah, awesome. Okay. My name is Vandad. I'm coming live from Prospect Heights in Brooklyn. This is the art that I overpaid for, right back here. I work for a company called Humor That Works. We train people and organizations to use humor effectively, to use humor in your jobs and in your everyday life more effectively. We feel like audiences are often bored, distracted, tired, stressed, and it's actually quite dangerous when your message is important, right? You don't want your audience to be bored and tired. So humor gets people to pay attention to your message. Humor makes your message more memorable and it's more fun, right? So we help connect what you have to do with something humorous so you can enjoy your job more and make a bigger impact. We run trainings for software designers, product designers, UX, UI designers, and data science companies in New York. We teach at the Flatiron School as well. And so yeah, most of our teachings are like on managing teams, communications training, and engineering creativity. So I would actually like to just do a quick game, if that's cool. It does not involve that much participation. All you have to do is turn on and off your video. All right, so that's all you have to do. And the game is called remain your video on if. All right, so that's all the game's called. You're gonna keep your video on if the questions I ask you are true. All right, and if I ask you a question and it's not true, then you're gonna turn your video off. All right, so keep your video on if you showered today. So keep your video on, everyone that showered today. All right, okay. Is anyone dropping off? All right, some people may have dropped, okay. Some people dropped off, all right. 10 people dropped off. Now keep your video on if you're wearing pants right now. Keep your video on if you're wearing pants. All right, let's see how many people drop off. Oh, only a couple. All right, everyone's wearing pants, good, good. And then lastly, keep your video on if you have not checked Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, or any social media in the last hour. Keep your video on. Oh, there we go. That's okay. There we go. All right, so we are left with, I don't know, like 15 people. Okay, Sam, check it out. So these are the attendees you can trust. These are the dependable ones, Sam. These are the ones that, you know, when you have future virtual meetups, they'll be attentive. All right, thanks. So that's, everyone can now put their videos on or off as you please. There's no pressure. You can do whatever you like. But that's just an example of some of our interactive exercises that we've done during this time. My story is that I have an engineer mind. I love analyzing things. When I was a kid, I loved taking things apart and putting them back together, like clocks, radios, and my parents' marriage. Never got that one quite back together, actually. As everyone knows, laughter is the best medicine, of course, right? Especially during this time. Unless if you have diarrhea, then laughter is not the best medicine, right? I've been feeling frustrated recently because I've been doing more admin work for my boss. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. I've been doing a lot of admin and virtual admin work for my boss. So I have to do like a couple hours every morning, and then I can actually, once I'm done the hours of admin, then I can write content and write jokes and some of our training material. And I kind of feel like Cinderella felt before the ball. I'm like wondering if I have any chance of ever making it to the ball. I've been doing more virtual group work, which I'm sure all of you have been doing as well. And it has its challenges. You know, people are just finding every excuse to not finish their work, to not do their part on the project. It makes me think when I die, I want my group members to like lower my casket so they can just let me down one more time. And yeah, I think this whole time it's kind of taught, this whole Zoom world, right? This virtual world, it's taught me that I'm a Zoom narcissist because I like pretty much look at myself the entire call. Like right now, I'm just like looking at myself. Like I don't even care if you guys are laughing. I'm just looking at myself in the entire calls, fixing my hair on the calls. I think there's actually like a 5-second delay in virtual and like some of the laughter as well. So like for people that have their mics on, it's a little bit of a delay, which is okay. I'm used to it. I've performed in Alabama. And actually, so I want to end with one story today. Actually, no, I have 2 more bits. I went to the grocery store today and I got there really early, right? And then I see this like line of the senior citizens in front, right? Like the senior citizens are there. And it's like, okay, the first hour is meant for them, right? And then I see this like young man like walk to the front of a line and try to get in the front of a line. And the like older senior lady like pushes him back and she's like, no, like this is like the first hour is for like senior citizens, like, you know, like respect your elders, like it's a pandemic. And the guy is like, all right. So the guy like goes back to his car, gets some keys, comes back again to the front of a line. And then the older senior citizen like takes her like walking cart and like hits him down. And the guy gets up and he's like, if you keep hitting me down, I can't open the grocery store. And then I think 2 positives to come out of this pandemic, this time right now, is that restaurants are offering takeout margaritas. Hopefully some people are experiencing that around them. The restaurant here in Brooklyn by me is offering takeout margaritas, which is awesome. I hope that stays after this whole world goes back to normal. Yeah, New York can be more like Europe. And then the other positive I was thinking about is that the Toronto Raptors will remain NBA champions for longer. So shout out to all the Raptors fans and Canadians on this call, which might not be many. I might be the only Canadian, but the Raptors will be NBA champions for longer. And yeah, I'm originally Canadian. It's been a great time for us because normally we just have like Wayne Gretzky and Celine Dion, just a few headlines. Like Americans treat us like the younger brother. They're like, all right, Canada, cool. Like you just hang up there. But now like there's all these headlines that like we have free healthcare, our healthcare system is not overwhelmed, and that our government believes in science and is super efficient. If anyone's following the news, like Canadians get $2,000 a month for 4 months throughout this COVID time. So we get $8,000 from the Canadian government, and that's directly deposited into your bank account. It's a 2-day direct deposit. No forms, no dealing with annoying banks, no dealing with bureaucracy. It's just directly in your bank account. So it's been amazing, actually. Like, I don't have to do any marketing for my country. People are like, oh shit, like Canada is just crushing it in this pandemic. Yeah, I don't have to do anything to convince my girlfriend to move up. She's like, okay, I get it. Your country's figured it out. I get it. Just leave me alone. All right, so that's my time. I just wanted to say thank you. So yeah, we work for a company that's called Humor That Works, and April is National Humor Month. So what we're doing is we're doing a humor event every day in April. So every day in April, we're doing a free virtual humor event. So stand-up shows, storytelling nights, poetry readings, improv nights, book readings, panels of humorists. On Saturday, we're doing a comedy writing workshop. So that's from 2 to 4 if you want to like sign up, just to help you like find more humor in your day-to-day life and teach you, like we taught ourselves, how to write jokes as you're going through your day. And we're currently hosting the Corporate Humor Awards too, where you can nominate someone in your company that is doing something humorous or fun to make it more enjoyable right now. I'll put those links in the chat. So yeah, thanks for listening.
Thanks, Vandad. Definitely another perspective on humor for sure, especially in the workplace. And we need it now more than ever, for sure. Let's see, anyone have questions for Vandad?
Not a question, but we're in the talks with Vandad and Humor That Works to get a longer session. So if you enjoyed that little taster that he just gave to us, look out for more, probably in like early May.
Sounds great. All right, next up, we've got our co-organizer, Kexin, and she's going to be talking about paper processes versus digital readings. Kexin, take it away.
Hi, Jose.
Hey.
Hi. So I'm going to share my screen now.
Go for it.
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to find the present. Okay, here. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about design, but really what got me interested in this topic is it's starting off with paper, because I actually have an experience a few months ago where I was at a bookstore in Brooklyn, and I actually don't remember. So these are my hands that holding the book. I actually don't remember the names of this book, but I was drawn to this book because of the cover. And I learned on this label on the book that the cover of the book is actually made by Henji paper. So, and I was drawn to it because of how elegant this half transparent look is. And when my hands touched on it, there is a very smooth sensation. And this is just a very satisfying feeling, and it makes me want to actually open the book. And I did a little bit more research about Henji book. So Henji actually referred to the handmade Korean paper. And traditionally, this durable paper is created using the bark of paper mulberry trees. And mulberry trees grow in low-lying hills and fields throughout Korea. And they're often found on ridges around dry farmland and on the slopes of small mountains. So Henji lasts for more than 1,000 years, and despite of its durability, its surface is still smooth. And besides being used for writing, Henji can also be used to make a range of objects, from clothing to windows or even lanterns. So the images you see here is the face masks made by Henji, and underneath the colorful piles are actually colored Henji paper. And this is a Henji made window. And this one is a very beautiful, it's also, it's a lantern. Not specific Henji, but just paper overall. There are lantern festivals in different places in the world where they use the paper to make lantern. And it's overall, it's a very emotional experience. So it's actually amazing to think about paper not only has a wide range of functionality, its physical properties like its texture, color, and how its transparency responds to the different lightings. These things all gives you a very wide range of emotional experience, just like my experience in the Brooklyn bookstore. So besides these properties, and of course, there's a smell of old book, which is very amazing. And as much as I'm vouching for the paper book, when it comes to reading, I was actually a fan of reading ebook a while ago for two big reasons. One of the reasons is actually I prefer to have the privacy of when I'm reading on the subway, where I don't want to draw attention from people to check out what I'm reading, and I just want to have my own personal space so I can focus on the book itself. And the second reason is the convenience. The book is literally in my phone, so I don't have to carry the pages of the heavy book walking around in between places all day. But there are still emotional aspects of the paper book that the ebook cannot beat. So paper book can be shared with people and passed down through generation to generation. I remember I had a great experience at a bookstore in Greenpoint, going through the notes in those old books where people used to gift it to each other. When I was reading those notes, it feels like I was reading someone's life story, but only part of it, without the beginning and without the end. So it's just adds so much emotional value to the reading experience itself. And as good as experience of consuming information on the paper can get, paper cannot deliver the dynamic experience that including sound and visual. So then we have movies. It started as a shared experience with strangers in the darkness of a cinema. Then we have TV. It's convenient. This allows information being sent to your homes, and you don't have to dress up to go outside anymore. Also, there is also it's personalized, so you also have more choices than ever. And fast forward several decades, we now have Netflix. It delivers not only the highly personalized experience, but also on demand that you could consume. You could consume desirable content anytime for as long as you want. And until last week, you probably have seen many news about the launch of Quibi. So Quibi, for those of you who didn't know, Quibi is a streaming service designed only for mobile. It shows bite-sized content for about 10 minutes maximum. It's designed to let people consume content during commute or during lunch breaks. being mobile only was Quibi's differentiator. However, just this week, they decided to make their content compatible to big TV screens. The guesses are because of the coronavirus, many people are staying in home. So the device that they have a better device to consume videos, which is a big screen TV. So this really, I think this tweet sums it up very well. So people choose the best available interface for the content, not the best available screen, just as iPad screens are better than PC ones. But some content is best off a laptop or PC. So I think this has, the event with Quibi and this tweet, I think it has a lot for us designers to think about how we're designing our content and where are our content for, and also what kind of device are available for our users' context. And many of you probably have seen this graph at different places. It tells the transition of media platform. And actually, so now we're actually at the end, we're approaching the VR and AR and MR. But in reality, many of these platforms actually coexist. So I think the question that we could, as designers, we could always keep in mind is how we could use our experience in these different mediums to get inspiration from those experiences and use the best out of those experiences into our design. And that's my talk.
Nice, Kexin, thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone got questions for Kexin? I mean, mine isn't a question so much as, you know, one of the first images that you had on your deck, you know, really moved me. You know, the image with the paper. Yes. Mm-hmm. So it reminded me of a time, you know, when I would go into stationery stores, you know, just to actually get a feel for the texture of tracing paper. You know, the thicker it was, the less of a relationship I had with it, but the thinner it was, for some odd reason, like I gravitated more toward it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so like the weight of the paper is also gives you like different your relation to it. Like you kind of have, because it's like, as I actually read it somewhere, like if the paper itself is like heavier, and you tend to give it more like respect. It's like some of the academic books are like heavy and hardcover. So all these like designs and details, the physical properties of the book can help to define the relationship of the reader and the book. So I think that's, yeah, I agree. That's like really interesting.
Yeah, thanks. Lillian has a question, and she's asking, do you think that the translucency or soft qualities of the paper engaged you more to it?
Sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
Do you think that the translucency or the soft qualities of the paper engaged you more to it?
Yeah, I think because it's kind of have this like transparency look, and I'm just like in terms of like aesthetics, I'm just more drawn to this kind of aesthetics. It's like feminine and very very light. So yes.
Good. Anyone else have any questions for Kexin?
I think like to jump on what you were just mentioning, I think one of my coworker or friends, she just found like a stack of postcards when she was cleaning out her home. I'm sure a lot of you guys are doing that too, myself included. Yeah, and then she just started to write a bunch of postcards and send it out to friends and family. And yeah, I was just kind of waiting for it to come in the mail for me, which was a nice surprise. So it's just like remind me of that feeling of just checking the mail and it not having to come from like a spam bot.
Yeah, that's really nice. That's a like something like we kind of every once in a while we kind of like crave for those kind of experiences.
Yeah. Everyone, let's thank Kexin. It was a great presentation. Thank you, Kexin.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So next up, we've got Summer, who's going to be presenting on the UX design trade-off formula. Summer, take it away.
Hello. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Kexin, can you please close your screen? So, oh, okay. I think now I can share. Let me give me one moment. Give me okay. Share. So can everyone see my screen? Yes. Okay. So I will start. Okay. Let me. Okay. Today I'm going to share a UX design trade-off formula I learned recently. So have you ever been in a situation where you have to make a design decision about application, design, or strategy? How did you end up making the choices? Was the decision based on insights, user data, or maybe feedback from the most senior member on your team? It's not easy making these decisions. I'm going to share a method and a checklist of considerations to work through before making design trade-offs. So what is design trade-off? A design trade-off is when you have to make a compromise on one thing so you can have another thing that's more important. The problem is we cannot always get everything we design. It's not practical. Having a logical approach to handle these decisions will set you up for higher success rate, and it will give you the opportunity to expand your maturity around design. Decisions are usually based on inputs. So where the formula comes in. The first question I want you to ask is, do you have the appropriate information in order to proceed with the decision? Sometimes getting the right inputs can be challenging, and sometimes you won't be able to get all of them, but that doesn't mean you cannot be thoughtful about the decision-making process. That's where the formulas comes in. So here's the, oh, I'm sorry. I missed the slides. Okay, so here's the design trade-off formula. Time plus team goals plus usage data plus qualitative feedback plus quality bar, which equals to a decision, plus impact, which equals to a decision. Now let's break it down. Considering your time. Considering the time involved is critical because it helps you understand the sense of urgency you need to have it at a given point. It also comes in handy because it lets you know how much time you have to gather more information, insights, and the rest of the formula. You might have one day or you might have 1 week. Time is a powerful lever in the decision-making process. Next is knowing your team goal. Team and the project goals help you quantify and adjust the decision at hand. If you understand the goals, then you will be able to ask the right questions about how the decision will affect the team's goals and the metrics of success. Then there's the usage data. Knowing how someone is experiencing your product or how they might use it is essential to making a decision. It plays into how you prioritize and focus on impact. For example, you might have to decide to implement a functional upgrade to a feature to make it work better over cosmetic CSS upgrades to the interface. This is a constant balancing act and one you will find yourself in regularly. Next up is in the formula is qualitative feedback. Do you have any existing research with supporting codes, emotional responses, or surveys that can add more clarity and understanding? The story allows for the team to feel empathy for the users this product serves. Next in the formula is understanding your quality bar. Does the implementation process of the team meet your quality standards? If you don't know what the quality standards are, then it's a great conversation to have with the team. Share with them what good, bad, and great looks like. The final part of the formula lasts for a reason. Impact. What does the impact look like? We need to consider the level of the impact that decision we have ended to make. How will it affect the team, project, and goals? Is it definitive or is it hypothesis? Now we have had a chance to think through time, team goals, usage data, qualitative feedback, quantity bar, impact, and we're ready to make a decision. The entire critical thinking process has led to this moment. You might feel the fear of making the wrong choice, and that's okay. You will have some background thinking to help you articulate your decision, and you will have a point of view. That's the best that you can do. You might make the wrong choice, but that's also okay. The more you put yourself in a position to make decisions, the more experience and design maturity you will obtain. You will also start picking up on behaviors and project trends that will also feed your mental model to managing decisions. With the formula 6 data points, you will begin to realize the decisions can be made quickly and confidently when you have these considerations locked in. If you'd love to chat more about UX and product, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for listening. That's my today's sharing. So any questions?
Thank you, Summer. Any questions for Summer?
And by the way, if anyone wants a slides, wants a six data points formula, I can share out later in the meetup group.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much.
So how to stop sharing? I'm trying to.
I think there's
okay.
There you go.
I found it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Summer, if it's all right with you, if anyone has questions, if you can hang out for a little bit after, the talks conclude, that'd be great as well.
Yeah, sure.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Summer. All right. Up next, we've got the incomparable Brian, who is going to be talking about augmented design, 3 principles for better augmented reality experiences. Brian?
Hey everyone, give me 1 second to get started here. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces back in our meetup. Let me open the chat just in case. All right. Cool, so let me just present. All right, so can everyone see my presentation? Just give me a thumbs up. Awesome. Great, so today I'm here to talk to you about augmented reality design and some principles that I think would make for better augmented reality experiences. I really enjoyed the fact that a lot of our talks have kind of like meshed together very well. I know Kexin mentioned VR, AR, and MR earlier. So without further ado, I'm Brian. I'm an augmented reality and UX designer. I have my own startup. We're doing augmented reality enabled tabletop mystery games. And and I've done a lot of AR and UX research also during my master's degree that I did at NYU. So this talk is mostly for designers looking to get into or learn more about augmented reality. So if you're a vet of the industry, which I know there's 1 or 2 of you in here, this might not be new information for you. So I also just wanted to preface this by saying that what I'm about to share with you are not like hard and fast rules. I think they should be more taken as guidelines, and mostly because AR is, such a new medium still for people, and everyone's still exploring, and what works for one application and experience might not work for others. So really, these are just guidelines. So the 3 principles I want to talk about today are spatial awareness, appropriate navigation, and reality integration. So the first one is spatial awareness, and what is spatial awareness? I don't know if you want to type in the chat what your guess is, but if anyone wants to, yeah, basically understanding your surroundings, yes. Being aware of space, yes, all true. So we're basically using what spatial awareness is 6 feet apart. Yeah. In this day and age, yes. So spatial awareness is basically just the consideration of your physical space, of the physical space, rather, when designing AR experiences. And why this is important is because a lot of, the spaces where your user will be using your experience can drastically vary. It could be in one of our tiny New York City bedroom apartments, or it could be somewhere like a park where users have a lot more freedom. So basically, depending on what your experience is and what you want to do, you should definitely be considering like where your user will be launching your experience. And obviously, if you're in like a living room or area with a lot of space coverings like tables, chairs, and other indoor decorations, that might also affect how your experience is run. So I want to give an example. So like Pokemon Go's AR Plus mode that they have in their app allows you to put a Pokemon into the physical reality and then catch it that way. So one of the things I like about this is that the UI, the interface, and the experience of catching the Pokemon is very simple. So it's very suited for any space that that the experience will be played in. So if you're playing from your bedroom or your apartment these days, most likely, and you can put like the Pokemon very close to you and try to catch it that way. Or if you're in a park, like in the screenshots, you can also do that. So the next one I want to talk about is appropriate navigation. So I'm asking what is appropriate navigation, but should be pretty self-explanatory. It's basically just using the appropriate navigational techniques that are best suited for the designed medium. And I say this, one, because different devices behave differently. So a lot of the most convenient augmented reality tool right now is our phones. Those are, quickly becoming super powerful. And even the new iPad Pro that just got released has a LiDAR scanner. So what the LiDAR scanner does is actually like shoots lasers out into your environment and way more quickly and accurately measures the distance between the device and a surface, for example. So we also have augmented reality headsets, like the Magic Leap 1 and the Microsoft HoloLens 2. And these definitely differ from like mobile devices. So if you attempt to take like your traditional mobile interactions and translate that into these headsets, it would probably be very clunky. Also, one of the things that, during my work at Unseen is that we found that like a lot more intuitive navigation may lead to like a lower learning curve for the experience. So that's basically just like talking about, we did a lot of research on like what people expected to happen, or, we'd be like, okay, we would walk through scenarios with people and like, I would be like, now do the gesture for feature A. And they would show us. So we kind of like took that and to see what people meant and how people, what their first reaction was basically to our features. So one of the an example I use of appropriate navigation is the Microsoft HoloLens 2. If you ever use this headset, and that is also Ellen, the second headset that I mentioned, is that it uses gestures a lot because it is a head-mounted display. And so in the example picture that you see, Microsoft actually does like the pinch to resize. So if you see the holographic image in front of you, you just pinch the corners and then resize it. So it's very like natural and a very appropriate navigational technique here. So the last principle that I'm going to talk about, because I only have 5 minutes, is reality integration. And basically what reality integration is pretty much exactly as it sounds. It's you're making an attempt to merge realities by linking the digital to the physical. So what we found out is that through some of our research and testing at Unseen is that AR experiences are definitely more impactful, can be more impactful when you tie it to the physical plane. So an example is basically what we do at Unseen is that we create these mystery games, and you can actually scan evidence with your phone and like use different kinds of augmented reality based detective tools. So for example, we have a scanning app, a facial recognition app that you can use to like scan these photos, and it will kind of like do a scanning animation and indicate if there's any matches. So we're tying that digital experience, that AR experience, to the physical plane. There's a very popular AR that a lot of AR games are using these days is just putting a digital object into physical reality. And sometimes that works, and a lot of time it feels like a digital element was you placed on a table, and does that really need to be AR if you're just doing that? And another thing that is important is that by doing this reality integration, you can reveal unseen information when you tie it back into physical reality. So an example of this is actually the Google Maps Live View feature. So if you are unfamiliar with Google Maps' new AR feature, launched sometime last year, you can actually see your directions in augmented reality now. And this is directly going back to that last point that I was talking about. And it's kind of like revealing the unseen information in the physical world. So when you're getting a navigation, at a turn, you might be able to see these arrows indicating where you should be turning. So yeah, those are the 3 principles that I've laid out: spatial awareness, appropriate navigation, reality integration. This is the first time I'm doing this talk. I want to do it bigger and include more examples and include up to like 5 principles. I did mention at the beginning that this is for designers looking to get into or learn more about AR. So in these next few slides, I have some resources on how you can get started today. So if you came to our August meetup last year, I talked about how you could get started by just simply like envisioning what you want out of a 3D AR app. And if you read Mike Pell's book, Envisioning Holograms, he does go into a lot more detail into that. And Mike Pell works at the Microsoft Garage, actually in New York City here. Another great book that I haven't finished yet, but creating augmented and virtual realities is great. So far, it's definitely targeted more towards like the beginner crowd. I included Charlie Fink's 2 books on the last right-hand side because I thought it was a really neat integration of augmented reality and books. The Metaverse book definitely is more for beginners, and then his second book, Convergence, is definitely more in depth about the convergence of different technologies to kind of enable this this new AR, MR, VR world that we'll be living in soon. So these are some apps if you want to do like basic augmented reality design that you can check out and download today. These are iOS devices right now, but if you do have a Mac, you can actually use Reality Composer on your Mac Mac OS devices, and you would just need to download Xcode, and Reality Composer is actually bundled into there. So if you want to do, these are very basic, no code needed, drag and drop, WYSIWYG, kind of like prototyping apps. I also have to plug the MIT Reality Hack. I volunteer with them. I do marketing and design, but attending hackathons is definitely another great way to learn more about, and get your hands dirty real quick about like augmented and virtual reality design in this case. So if you're interested in that, I'd be happy to chat with you further. But that's it from me. If you guys have any questions, I'd love to hear about that in chat. Otherwise, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, or shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to talk to you more about UX design for AR, VR. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Brian. Does anyone have questions for Brian? Here we go. Bianca's asking, do you need to know how to code to design for AR, VR?
So those apps that I mentioned are no-code apps. I think for us as designers, if you don't know how to code, it's best to understand the relationship between the digital elements and physical. So those would go back to like the principles that I talked about. Obviously, coding is helpful if you know how to code, and you can quickly crank out some prototypes in Unity or Unreal Engine or even Web AR and Web VR. It is helpful, but I found that even just using those prototyping apps that I mentioned, I'll just scroll back to them. It was enough to, like, for me, when we were designing puzzles, AR puzzles and Unseen, I would use like Torch or Reality Composer hadn't come out yet. So I used Torch to show my developers, I'm like, hey, for this puzzle, I'm thinking about this. And Torch and all of these apps you can program basic interactions. So I would like press this cube that would have been representative of an object and something happens. So these apps here that you see are like no code, but obviously I think coding does help.
All right, and we've got one. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Start for Rachel, the Google Maps app. I believe you have to start navigation somewhere first. And then I'll just show you here. So this is, and then you would get this extra option, live view. If it's not available, and I am on iOS, so if you don't have it, try updating the app, I would assume.
All right, Brian, thanks so much. Really interesting presentation. Definitely, for those that are interested in AR, VR, reach out to Brian. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Last but not least, we've got Rachel, who's going to be presenting My Mission to Mentor, Why Supporting Young Women in Technology Promotes a More Diverse and Prosperous Workforce. Rachel, take it away.
All right, thank you so much, Jose. It is an absolute pleasure for me to be a guest tonight to speak about something that is dear to my heart, but also really important for our industry as we grow and improve and look to come into the next century. My mission to mentor. I am Rachel Anderson, and I am excited to be a guest for the Open Mic Night. First, who am I? I am a UI UX designer that works in the finance industry, and in the space of women's empowerment, I am a mentor and entrepreneur, and I will be able to share more about those initiatives tonight. First, I will begin with a statistic that is startling, but also empowering because it really calls us to action. And that is that 73% of women consider leaving their tech careers at some point. This is a study that Capital One did, and it was based on a lot of factors, but that's a really high number, and we need to do something about it. To begin, why do I mentor? There are a lot of reasons, but I wanted to pinpoint 3 tonight. The first is support. I want women to know that in technology, in finance, in industries, that they are the minority, that they are not alone, that I've been there. I know what it's like to be a young woman trying to get into technology, applying for jobs, and looking to thrive in the workplace. I know what it's like. I've been there, and I'm here for you. Empowerment, I'm also here to empower you. Women need to be told they're deserving, qualified, and capable. I want to be that voice for them. Women can and should pursue careers in finance and technology. And the last one, diversity. We all know the benefits of diversity from the top level to the bottom line. Higher collective intelligence, team intelligence, and better at problem solving. So because of all of these things, I mentor. But who do I mentor? Good question. I mentor women of all ages. Most of them are young, many in their 20s, just like me. They are from every industry. Many are design, but some healthcare, social sciences, history. Again, it's harder to get into technology when you're coming from a completely different space, and that's why it's important that we mentor each other. And I mentor women in any country. I am proud to say that my initiatives are international, and they're all over the United States. The beauty of technology nowadays is it doesn't matter where you are. You can join a community just like on this Zoom call. We are all in different places, but we're together because of software. How do I mentor? I have 2 initiatives right now that I use to reach out to women. The first is face-to-face time. This is a one-on-one opportunity to connect via calls, FaceTime, video conferencing, text, email. I started with face-to-face time, and it was really my call to be connected with the industry, to bring up these women in technology. We have to think of the corporate ladder. There will always be people higher than us, above us. We should learn from them. And there will always be people that are below us. We need to mentor and bring them up. Face-to-face time, after I was doing these individual one-on-one mentoring calls with women, I realized one day that I should really bring them together, that many of them are in the same situation, and I'm giving them the same advice. So why don't we form a community? And that's really what became Newbie Community. And this is a group of women who I'm bringing all together to be more effective, to be more impactful. There really is strength in numbers. I want to share another statistic, and this one is a lot more hopeful. It's a lot more inspiring, and that is that women who support women are more successful. This is a study done by Forbes and Harvard Business Review. We have to be able to band together and stand up for each other. This is important because it shows that they have higher executive success. It's really important to focus on collaboration over competition. Women who have close inner circles are more likely to land executive positions with greater authority and higher pay. This is really what I'm in it for. This is why I stand up for women and advocate for them. Now, how can you get involved? Well, if you're interested in becoming a mentee, you're looking for a mentor, or you would want to be a guest on one of my webinars or group meetups, go ahead and contact me. I'd love to get to know you. But I really want to encourage you to find out how to do this on your own. Do it in your own way. And you can do that by really thinking deeply about what your passion is, what drives you, what motivates you. What do you really care about? Diversity, inclusion, accessibility. Find your fire and pursue it fearlessly. And the last is to seek out community. Once you find your why, that gets you in. The who gets you through. And design is all about relationships. Mentoring is all about relationships. And that's really what community is about. Get involved with people who have similar interests and match your level of motivation. I'm sure this Brooklyn product design group is a great place that a lot of you are seeking that out and finding it. And it's another example of how we can come together to learn from each other and really focus on what's important. So that's what I have. Thank you for listening. Again, this is always exciting for me to talk about and share things that I'm passionate about. If you're interested in learning more, you can go ahead and find me on Twitter or email me. And I'd love to take any questions people have now.
What are some resources to go to in order to get connected to mentors like such? I know we were talking through Hexagon.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of groups for women, tech ladies, Hexagon, ladies that UX, all over the United States, even international. But the websites Eventbrite and Meetup are also awesome opportunities to find events and organizations in your area that are hosting things. There is something powerful in being able to connect with people that are in your city, that are close to you, because you can form those connections where you see people around, and that's really great. But it's also awesome to be able to do this internationally and nationally. I do see that there's a question in the chat here from Lillian. She said, when did you start mentoring? That's a great question, Lillian. Thanks for asking. I actually began once I had gotten a little bit settled in my career. I've been a designer now for just a year and a half, and I probably started this mentoring initiative after 8 months or so. And it was sort of fed by my desire to not only bring up this next generation of young women designers, but also to pay forward and pay it back. There were so many people who invested in me and who gave me a lot of support and advice. And I feel like I need to continue that and give that back. And it's really important that when people do things for us, that we do continue that spirit of generosity and community. So that's what I'd recommend. There's another question from another Rachel. She said, what is the hardest thing for the people that you mentor? Getting your foot in the door. It's especially if you aren't coming from technology, especially if you're in an area that it's hard to commute and network. It can be hard to get to those events. It can be hard to find people. And so you're sort of left with just not knowing what the first step is. And so that's why doing whatever you can to meet people, honestly, LinkedIn. Find designers who work at companies that you're interested in. Look at who they follow. Look at the organizations that they are connected with, and then start doing the same. Honestly, shoot your shot. Connect with people on LinkedIn, message them, and see how you can get involved with things that you care about. So definitely just that first step of knowing what to do and how to get an opportunity, but there are definitely things that you can do. There's another question here. What about our male allies? How can they get involved? That is a great question. Listen, we cannot do it without the other 50% of our population, and that is men. So many women have great allies, mentors, and sponsors who are males. We cannot and should not do it without them. In my own life, I would not be where I am right now without the exceptional men that have devoted time to teaching me and bringing me up and really caring about my career path and trajectory. It's support from everyone for everyone. That's really what this is about. Another question here. What advice do you have for someone just starting out as a full stack developer and designer? What are the most technical skills to have on our resume? Ooh, I would say anytime you have a resume, anytime you have a social profile, you want to communicate who you are as a person. And that is both the things that you're good at and the things that you care about. It's great to get specific, the languages that you know that will be used in this position. Try to match your resume to what the job posting says. Always be honest about what your qualifications are and represent yourself accurately, but do highlight these things that are unique to you. It can be almost confusing and disorienting to be just getting into tech, because there are so many talented people and there are so many people out there. You can see that there are hundreds of applicants to a job posting, but never lose your sense of self. Never feel like you are less good than someone because you don't have the qualifications that you have. Start where you're at with what you have, who you are, and really be empowered by your uniqueness. I named my community Newbie Community because I don't want these women to be ashamed that they're young and they're new. Use that as a strength. You have energy and passion and motivation, and you really believe that you can change the world with technology. Always use your background and experience as a strength. And make sure to remember to check in with yourself. If you are just getting into the job application process, especially right now, it is a hard, difficult time for millions of people. And we got to make sure, hey, how am I doing? Am I connecting with other people? Am I making sure they're okay too? Always be curious, kind, and confident. That's my advice, especially right now. We really need it. All right, I guess there's one more question here. What communities of women would you say are still underserved or lacking the access to mentorship? Also, what gaps do you see that could use room for improvement inside of this idea for creating collective? Definitely the minority women who have just less access to things, who are underrepresented. It is hard to know what to do when you don't see examples of what you're trying to become. And at the executive level, there isn't a lot of that. We can talk about the gender pay gap, we can talk about the wealth gap. However, a lot of it is the visibility gap. Women have to see what they become. And so that's why promoting the voices of women that are in leadership, but also empowering the young women that are looking to get into this, that's really why and how it matters. I'm just getting involved with an organization called Women of Color in the Workplace, and we are working to try to improve this for underserved women who have less access, fewer role models and examples. That's why mentorship matters. Think of going on a hike in the woods. If there is no path, it's hard to know where to go and what to do. We are trying to create these paths. We're trying to pave the way for these women to get into technology and thrive and excel in what they're doing. We want trailblazers, yes, but we also want people to come alongside with you and hike. As far as room for improvement, definitely being able to raise awareness about these issues. I like to think about awareness, advocacy, and advancement for women at all levels. We have to improve the education about these issues, and that's why I am passionate about talking to this subject in any community I'm in. And if there's not any other questions, I'd love to hand it off.
All right, Rachel, I just have to say on a personal note, you touched on one of those subjects that is just very near to my heart. So thank you. Quite comprehensive, given the constraint of time. Yeah. If everyone can listen to me, if everyone can unmute their mics for a second. Thanks. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like for all of you to give a round of applause, to all of our speakers. Diana, Abeiene, Vandad, Kexin, Summer, Brian, and Rachel. So just a quick sec. We got a couple of announcements. Let's see.
Hi, Ivo.
So we have actually, been working behind the scenes to create a new site, so we can have everything under one roof. And let me just get that 1 second. All right, and I will put that right here. The link is there. And yeah, feel free to, connect with us. We've got, 6 ways to communicate with us through LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We have a Slack channel and a YouTube channel. And we've also got a hashtag. So we're at hashtag BK Product Design.
All right.
Let's see. Yeah. So we look forward to, thinking about, new events, and, we'll definitely be in touch. And if anyone wants to stick around, you're more than welcome. The more the merrier. Again, thank you so much.
All right, I did get a comment that the Twitter link for my community was not working. So let me try to fix that. I may have misspelled it.